Welcome everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me this evening for this very special lesson in Mr. Aegis Vtuber health class. My name is Mr. Aegis. I will be your teacher for the session. I'm a health teacher in the real world. I stream indie games, classic games, first-time playthroughs, and I give health and wellness lessons on a variety of topics like this one. Mental and physical health and well-being. We talk about self-talk, staying sane on social media, alcohol, supplementation, vaping, cannabis, mental health first aid, all different kinds of very important health and wellness topics. Tonight, we're going to be talking about alcohol. The first question, I think, is pretty important to ask is, well, what is it? What is alcohol? I mean, I could give you a one-word definition, so what do you think? What is alcohol? If you had one word to describe it, I think the word many of us might correctly use is, well, it's a drug, right? Rico says, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems. Well, Rico quoting Homer Simpson. Perhaps somewhat accurate. There are many quotes like that, I think, Kevin. Yep. It is many things. It is a cultural touchstone. It is an act of ritual. It is a drug. Whoop! It does cause people to do things like flip desks that almost hit me in the head. Driver of human advancement. In some cases, yes. A major part of society, indeed. The fact that it is a drug does not inherently mean it is a bad thing. We take things that are drugs all the time. We've talked about cannabis, called it a drug because that's what it is. Talked about caffeine and called it a drug because that's what it is. Nicotine, a drug because that's what it is. Oh, and Sweetity, thank you. And yes, so it is a drug. And what type of drug it is? Well, it's a depressant. That's the type of drug it is. Many different ways that you could describe it. Yes, indeed. You could divide things into hard and recreational. I think a big determining fact there is how someone ends up using it in their own life, which then gets into the definition of addiction, which we'll talk about. But it is a depressant. It does have depressing effects. Well, not depressing in that sense, but you know what I mean. It depresses certain brain functions. It is a psychotropic drug, meaning that it has an effect on your cognition, on your perception. As opposed to a drug that, like, say, aspirin. It is a drug, it has effects on you, but it is not psychotropic. It does not alter your perceptions of the world around you. It should also be noted that it is a neurotoxin. Yeah, when they say that drinking kills brain cells, it isn't just a joke. It's not a cliche. It's accurate. It is a neurotoxin. It is neurotoxic. What is it more generally? Well, it's the byproduct of yeast eating sugar. It's a waste product. It's yeast farts, essentially. Yeast eats sugars, some source of sugar, and barfs out alcohol and carbon dioxide. Yeah. And in fact, as Utopia Tree mentions, I do say that it is a carbohydrate. It is. It does have carbohydrates. If you rebranded booze as yeast farts, Rao says, the market would dry up real fast. Well, some markets would. There might be a new market. Some people might be interested. But let's get some numbers out of it, huh? Let's talk about the numbers. By the numbers, let me ask you, do you use alcohol? Do you use any alcohol? And I say use because It is a drug. Did you use the drug alcohol recreationally? So, Rao, you had some champagne at a friend's wedding back in December. So, yeah, that's, social situations. Rico using it frequently for antisepsis, but infrequently for consumption. So I have not used it very often in the recent period after I was diagnosed with ADHD and given medication. I haven't had any drinks since then. So it seems like those of you who do use alcohol don't use it very often. When you do, how much do you drink? Is it infrequently, but when you do drink, you drink quite a lot? Or just occasional 1 or 2 drinks? If you do use alcohol, where do you tend to use it? Where do you tend to drink, and why? What's the reason? What are the factors that determine when you decide to drink, where you decide to drink, who you drink with? Enrico, you have to be responsible often, so you don't get the chance. Because Rico knows when you do have alcohol in your system. Hard to make responsible choices, another thing we'll talk about shortly. Probably a lot of different factors go into why you would choose. Rao, you say the only other time you usually drink is when a friend drags you to a bar. You'll have 1 or 2 nice Guinness pints. Seems an effective way to moderate yourself, especially since, it's kind of expensive at a bar. So a monetary factor for sure. Again, a social situation. If you do drink currently, or you've ever drank, why did you start? What was the thing that first caused you to drink? Or who got you to try your first drink of alcohol? What was that first impressionable situation? Your best friend with his family, Rico says. Ghosty says they'll never drink. Sweetity, you say you drink too often for your age? Well, depending on your age, too often might be any at all, so I don't know. Rouse says your friend's dad made very awful homemade wine. That does sound awful. For me, it was also a friend in high school. It wasn't homemade wine, but it was just a giant jug that had vodka and like one of those frozen cans of concentrated fruit juice, and just mixed that together and drank it. And I felt terrible after. So it sounds like when you started was, in that high school period, right? Similar to myself for most of you, if you did drink at all. Very impressionable period, and it's sort of when people expect you to start drinking, right? The social expectation. For adults, the reason why most people choose to drink are things like socializing. As some of you mentioned, doing it in social situations. Using it as stress relief. They may self-medicate with alcohol. And it may just be as we've been talking about, expected that you drink in certain situations and places, like, say, a wedding. For youth, people who start drinking under 21, the major factors are, unsurprisingly, their peers, peer pressure, the novelty of it. Youth are often novelty seeking. They look for new and interesting situations, experiences. They're curious about it. They may also use it for escapism, things happening in their lives they want to avoid. But back to the numbers, now that we've delved into some of our own personal experiences. Where do the numbers stand today? Well, a majority of adults in the US, where I live, drink alcohol, at least occasionally. About 38% of people totally abstain, don't drink at all. The other 62% say they at least have occasionally used alcohol. So 6 out of every 10 people will occasionally at least have a drink, and many of them, of course, have more than an occasional drink. So it's actually more expected that you would drink than you don't. But that's just occasional use. That's just the people who drink occasionally. What percent of people do you think engage in heavy use? What percentage of people do you think would qualify for the term heavy user of alcohol? Someone being a heavy drinker. How many people, in the US at least, are considered heavy drinkers? Ember suggests 10%. Utopia Tree says that they're contributing to that figure. Rao guesstimates 30% because we underestimate what constitutes heavy. We arrive at about 7%. 7% of people constituting the heavy drinking category. The precise figure is 15 or more drinks per week, which is 2 drinks or more per day. So it's actually even less than that. Yeah, it wasn't 30%, which is great, but I think Broham, McNugs, or I think Rao, as you mentioned, it might just be that some people don't consider themselves heavy drinkers or don't really understand that all it takes is 15 a week to be heavy drinking. It is quite a lot less than people think. Someone goes through a 6-pack a night, well, that's already getting up there. Now, interestingly, there's been a drop in the alcohol use rates during COVID, but there was a corresponding increase in the amount of alcohol-related deaths during the pandemic. So, regular alcohol usage during the pandemic went down, but the number of alcohol-related deaths during the pandemic went up. Why do you think that might be? Why do you think that might be the case? What contributed to both of those things that seem like they would be going in the opposite direction? Why would the total amount, or the regular amount of alcohol use go down, but alcohol-related deaths go up. Rao suggests that it was harder to get alcohol, but the people who wanted it really wanted it. I think that's a good point. Especially for, say, minors who did not have had alcohol at all. And perhaps another factor is that people who were used to drinking a smaller amount began drinking quite a bit more because of the stress and the issues surrounding the pandemic. Yeah, and they may not have gone to the hospital. They were suffering alcohol poisoning. Perhaps were not able to get treatment for an alcohol use disorder. So important to note that the raw use rate, the number of people drinking, is not the only factor. It is about how much people drink, how problematic their drinking is. But there are good news. But there are... How do I word that so I don't sound stupid? But there is good news. Lifetime underage drinking is actually down. Underage drinking is down, which is fantastic. The number of 8th graders who say that they have drank within the last month has plummeted. 10th graders is down quite a bit as well. It is also down for 12th graders. Roham, you say getting sober was the best thing you ever did for your health. I can believe that, and I think that's probably true. And perhaps the pandemic also contributed to the drop in underage drinking. Again, being harder to come by. But it's also college students who are drinking less. And it's not just over the course of the pandemic, but over the course of 10 years. There does seem to be a long-term slow decline in alcohol use rates for college students. Annual drinking over the course of a year has held steady, but drinking consistently every month is down, and binge drinking is down quite a bit. Down to 22% from 35%. So some potential good news for young people's drinking rates. Why do we think that is? Why might young people, or, well, currently young people, be drinking less, particularly binge drinking less? There's a couple of potential reasons, I think. Rouse says it's expensive. It is expensive, and college students are poor. And college is expensive. Yeah, and then you also have to pay to get to wherever you're drinking. Also very true. And I think the other factor is that there is just a greater emphasis on health. And I think that potentially the legalization of recreational cannabis is another factor. People using other substances instead of alcohol. That might play a factor. That might play a role. But there are levels of drinking. Right? We talked about what is considered heavy use. Well, moderate use, of course, is anything under that 15 drinks per week, or less than 2 a day. Anything beyond that would then, of course, be heavy use of alcohol. There's one other term that we've mentioned, and that is the word binge drinking, and that is having more than 4 or 5 drinks within 2 hours. So that is that 6-pack if drank within the course of about 2 hours. That is considered binge drinking. Binge drinking is not getting blackout drunk. It is more than 4 or 5 drinks in 2 hours. And again, like with heavy use, it doesn't seem like that's a whole lot. But that's what defines a binge. Just 5 drinks in 2 hours for a 200-pound adult. 4 drinks in 2 hours for, say, a 150-pound adult. That's all it takes to be considered an alcohol binge. It doesn't seem like much. And a lot of people probably don't realize that they engage in binge drinking pretty regularly if they drink that 6-pack when they get home from work. They might not understand that, yeah, that is a binge. Of course, people also don't really think about what a drink is. What constitutes one drink? What do you think one drink is, class? Tell me what one drink is. What constitutes one drink? I think Utopia Tree hit it on the head. One beer, one glass of wine, or one shot, you said? Well, one 12-ounce beer at 5% alcohol by volume is considered one drink. That is one standard drink. Or one 8-ounce, 7% alcohol malt liquor. Or just 5 ounces of a 12% wine. Or just 1.5 ounce of a 80 proof spirit. So these 5 shots here lined up, that in itself would be a binge drinking session if taken in less than 2 hours. Just those little 5 ounces would be considered a binge drink. Could be considered binge drinking. It doesn't seem like much, does it? But it is a drug. And it does cause some issues, and we're going to talk about the acute issues first, what it does in the short term. At low levels of alcohol, that's between 2 to 4 drinks, you get the feeling of the relaxation that we all know about, and the cognitive impairment. You know how that goes. Slowed reaction time, difficulty concentrating, holding a conversation. Causes a rush of both dopamine and serotonin, but also endorphins, causing that euphoria. And I'm not going to dwell on this stuff too much because most of you have had a drink at least once in your life, so you know what it is. I don't want to dwell too much on the things that you know about a lot already. But let's touch a little bit more on the sociability part. Why does it make us feel more sociable? Why does it make us more sociable? A couple of reasons. There's an increase in your GABA. And GABA gives us a sense of being more sedate, more relaxed. Reduces our inhibition, so we have less fear and anxiety about being sociable, about interacting with people. Causes a decrease in glutamate, which reduces our cognition. GABA is an inhibitory neurotransmitter, and glutamate is an excitatory neurotransmitter. It reduces our critical thinking, makes it less likely for us to be able to anticipate consequences, to assess risks, which in some cases does make us more sociable because we're not thinking about the consequences of being sociable. And by that I mean embarrassment. We're less likely to feel like it's too much of a risk to be sociable because we're worried about what people will think of us. We're not thinking about what people will think of us. We're not thinking about things at all. We're more impulsive. It makes you more bold, essentially. You're not worried about being embarrassed, not as anxious or afraid, so it makes you more outgoing, or perhaps at least feel more outgoing. Because there is also an expectancy factor. We expect that alcohol will make us feel more outgoing, and perhaps it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But of course, as you drink more and more, in the acute period, it does lead to vomiting, fainting, memory loss, engaging in more high-risk behavior, emotional instability, and obviously can lead to physical injury because of our loss of motor control, lower reaction time. And obviously can lead to alcohol poisoning. Alcohol as a depressant can depress your respiration, depress your respiratory drive, interfere with your cardiac function, which can be a potentially fatal situation. Over the long term, though, the chronic effects of alcohol use, I mean, you know that there's liver potential, or there's potential for liver damage. Most people understand that. But even at low levels, I'm focusing now just on low levels of alcohol, not heavy use, not people who drink a lot over a lifetime, but people who have a few drinks consistently, people who are low-level drinkers. There is still a higher cancer risk, particularly for breast and colon cancer. And reduction in sleep quality over time. That is just in moderation. That is, alcohol in moderation still has a higher risk of several different types of cancers. Now there are people who say that there are benefits to low-level drinking, that drinking in moderation has a physiological benefit. That research is still pretty equivocal and controversial. Yes, Setsune Alpha. People who claim they need to have a little hot toddy before sleep. Yeah, alcohol does interfere with your normal sleep cycle. You may feel sleepy. You may even go to sleep. But your brain is not getting that proper restful sleep. Yeah, there are people who think that there are benefits to a moderated level of drinking over the long term. But like I said, that research is equivocal and quite controversial. Some believe that it may lead to a higher HDL, or good cholesterol, or that it might lead to a mild reduction in blood clots. Some people even suggest that it might improve the risk of type 2 diabetes for some adults, possibly because it may improve insulin sensitivity. These are all very much up in the air, and the consequences far outweigh the benefits. The biggest thing that people say, of course, is that, well, drinking wine is good for your heart, which, like almost anything that comes out as far as science goes, gets turned into, this is a good thing and you should take it. Study comes out and says that celery salt is a wonder food. It's a superfood. It does this, that, and the other thing, and now everyone is taking this supplement. No, what they found was that resveratrol and anti-inflammatory compounds like that had a benefit. And that happens to be in some wines. And people took that to mean that they could just drink and it would be good for them. That's not really the case. And you can get those antioxidants, those anti-inflammatories, in many other non-alcohol sources. You can just eat grapes and strawberries. And that's right, Rao, a cure-all cures nothing. There is really no such thing as a superfood. Really no such thing as a cure-all. There is no panacea. Well, Empress, yes, Benadryl will have a depressant effect as well, so not too dissimilar. And then, of course, though, there are much more severe consequences for heavy use of alcohol over the lifetime. Again, these are things that you are pretty strongly aware of, I'm guessing. So we don't dwell on that a lot. Liver disease, heart disease, pancreatitis, nutrient deficiencies, suppresses the immune system, and then much higher cancer risks for breast and colon, but also mouth, throat, and liver. And then psychologically, depression, anxiety, greater risk of mood disorders, alcohol use dependence, and social impairment. So, as we ask, it seems every time I talk about one of these legal drugs, is why is it considered so normal? Why is it considered so okay? We talked about nicotine being such a strong and addictive stimulant, yet it is legal and accepted and considered cool by many people. It has all those negative consequences. Why do people do it? We talked about the issues with cannabis. Talking about alcohol now. I think it even connects with our conversation on sleep, for example, where I said that if our poor sleep as a society is causing so many problems, leading to so many health issues, such a drastic reduction in people's productivity, costing the economy so much, why isn't it considered a national health issue? Why isn't it considered a major problem? Well, you know that a whole lot of mammal species love getting obliterated. And hello, Gupster. What's up? Coming to us from YouTube. Why is it considered so normal? People do just love the feeling of it. That's true. It is also very integrated into society. That is also very true. It goes back a very long way. It's a quick and easy way to get, well, some kind of positive feelings. Well, one of the big reasons that it continues to be so popular and so acceptable is that there are dealers. Yeah. If it's a drug, there are people who are dealing that drug. There are people who are making money off of that drug. So we're going to take a brief overview of who are the dealers. Who are the people who are dealing in this drug, alcohol? The first is Molson Coors. Molson Coors Beverage Company. Molson Coors is a $10 billion company, controls about 100 different brands, and about 10% of the market share. That is a whole lot of money and a whole lot of power. AB InBev, or what used to be Anheuser-Busch, about 60 to 100 billion, controlling over 600 brands. And it controls about 40% of the entire beer market. Busch, Budweiser, Bud Light, Modelo, Michelob, Stella Artois, Corona, Busch, all owned by the same company. There is the Constellation Group, also about 10 billion and controlling about 100 different brands. They control a whole lot of the wine industry. There's Pernod, a French company. But they also control Absolut, Jameson, Malibu, Chivas Regal, Kahlua, and about 200 other brands. Diageo, if I pronounce that right, is about $50 billion as well, over 100 brands, and about 20% of the market share. They control companies like Walker, Guinness, Smirnoff, Gordon's, and Tanqueray. Just a handful of companies dominate massive amounts of the market, and they make hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars together. And that connects with what Raul was saying. Social conventions, once established, are hard to break. And once there are massive moneyed interests involved, it's going to be even harder. There are a few other major players in the game, but many of them would also then have ties to these handful of companies. It's kind of like how you go into the supermarket and there's a bunch of different cereal brands that you could buy, but then you look on the back of the box and they're all owned by the same company. You'll see beer commercials and you'll be like, well, wonder which of those two beers I should buy. And then, well, it doesn't really matter. The same company owns them both. So that gets us to one of the, I think, most important aspects of the discussion, because most of you already know all about the effects of alcohol. You probably know what a standard drink is, and that you shouldn't drink more than a couple of drinks within a couple of hours. And that a 30-pack of beer should last you a month. But why do we drink so much? Why do we think it's so normal to drink so much more than that? Well, a couple of reasons. Renaud de Chatillon, what's up? We're going to take a look at some of the ways that we are manipulated by these dealers. By all means, Reynald, you don't even need to raise your hand. You can just, you're coming to us from YouTube. If you're on Twitch, you can hit me with something, but yes, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Media assumes you even have the income for drinking Zetsun Alpha. Exactly. And I wish I had some tacos, Raul. Yeah, I'm going to be really hungry after stream. Hey, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to do this. Some of the reasons that it is so effective, that they're very good at their jobs. And they use a lot of different techniques. And the first one is associating drinking with positive emotions. Joy, celebration, friendship, relaxation, fun. This one you're probably familiar with, endorsement, celebrity endorsement, association with things that are cool, association with people that are trusted. Yes, Reynald, in the back. What do you have for us? And sponsorships, you know, plastering your brand all over things, getting your brand associated with events, even holidays. I'll let you think about that one for a sec. How could a brand get itself associated with a holiday? Think about it for a minute. Emotional appeal, manipulating us with feelings of nostalgia, longing, aspiration. Reynald, you, of course, can use the restroom. I never keep my students in the class if they have to use the restroom. Zetsun Alpha, you point out St. Patty's Day. Exactly, that's a good one. I think also Christmas gets itself associated with alcohol brands, like say there's the Budweiser Clydesdale commercials. And sex appeal. We can't forget sex appeal. Playing on our natural biological urges in some cases. Playing on the idea that alcohol makes you more desirable, more sociable. That it also is related to your virility, masculinity perhaps, or fear of being seen as not masculine in some cases. And fear of missing out. That's another big one. You don't want to miss out on what everyone else is doing. Everyone else is doing it. Everyone else is having a good time. You don't want to miss out. Targeting ads. Very, very well targeted ads. Specifically designed for particular people. To college students. Or business people. Different cultural and ethnic groups. With specific ads that make them feel like this alcohol, this brand, this experience is for me. Downplaying risks, minimizing any potential harms, emphasizing the positives instead of the negatives. Getting your product placement. If your product is seen in natural situations, if people in movies and TV and whatever else are shown using your company's brands, reinforces the idea that, well, that's a normal, natural thing for people to do. And I mean, obviously, taste is another factor. Emphasizing how good this alcohol tastes, which is such a weird thing to me because alcohol doesn't need to taste good. Like, if you're... Who cares, honestly? If I were to drink again, it would not be for taste. If I want something that tastes good, I'll eat a burger. I'll have some juice. And lastly, even health. Especially in more recent periods, alcohol companies are trying to find ways to push the idea that some alcohols are even good for you. And that might seem like a strange idea, but I'll show you what I mean. Because we get to the section of this lesson that I think is the most fun for everyone. Because we're going to watch alcohol ads. We're going to watch some alcohol ads together and pick them apart. We're going to start with this one. First, I need to just make sure that the volume is going to play properly. But I want you to pay attention and listen to these ads and see if you can pick out any of the things that we talked about, any of those bullet points I mentioned.
A Corona and palm trees.
A Corona and calm seas.
And a balm breeze.
And some long knees, strong like a tongue squeeze. You'll say, "Aw, geez," when I make your lawn freeze. Was that good?
No.
Oh.
It was incredible.
Oh.
Lee bad.
Oh.
But this is good.
I shouldn't have rapped.
Yeah, so what of those bullet points that we went over, do you think that this ad touched on? Which particular methods did they use? Tylenol, Tyrone, you first one nailed it. The celebrity endorsement. Celebrity endorsement, associating your product with people who are considered cool or popular. That's a big one. If I was to pick out another one, I might say also taste, or I guess you could lump that in as refreshment. It's refreshing. We got this beautiful, warm beach, sandy beach, ocean waves. Yeah, that's a strong celebrity endorsement one. How about this one? So, what are some of the things you think it might have hit on in this one? It had strong vibes, Gupster. Immaculate vibes. Social and community aspect, Dr. Philorodika. Yes. All these people together, they're all having fun. They're socializing. They're dancing. It's making you move, making you dance. It's associating with cool music. Also refreshing, and there's, there shots in that commercial of pineapples being chopped up and mixed together with alcohol with the, citrus juice. At the beginning, even there was a little tag there that said a producer or something, Swiss Beats. Even got a little celebrity endorsement thing in there. How about this one? What did you think in that short one? I think there's a couple you could pick out even in that short 30 seconds. Biggie, yeah. They've got the very obvious connection to a popular celebrity, popular figure, Biggie Smalls. Yep, Utopia Tree associated with music. Music that's considered popular but also very cool. This one is one of my favorites to play. Zetsune Alpha touches on here. Carrying more beers at once is gooder. It does kind of imply more is better. She's got all these beers lined up in front of her that she's taking to her friends, but how does she take them? Grabs them all in one handful, such that even the bartender is like, oh, wow, you're carrying all those yourself. Oh, look at this cool woman who can carry all these beers. And then there's this loser who's carrying his 4 beers on a tray. Look at this poor, emasculated loser who is carrying his beers with a tray while she's carrying hers like a more virile, masculine person. This commercial essentially is just emasculated this guy and said, you're a loser because you're not drinking the right beer. She's got the correct beer with the right label on it, and he's just got the plain regular beer. He's a scrawny loser. What a dork. She's cool. And the huge big guy she walks by kind of gives her a little Wink, like, hey, yeah, you're cool. So that is one of my favorite ones. That's the sex appeal, but in a twist. Attacking someone's virility because you're not drinking Bud Light and being cool. Now, how about this one that we've all seen recently? Yeah, that one, very much the refreshment. It's light and refreshing. It tastes good. Everyone's chilling at the pool. It's not a big deal. It's light and airy, right? You're walking on water. It's not serious at all. For the last one, Gupster, that would be the sex appeal. That would be sex appeal, I think. An attractive but very cool woman in a leather jacket compared to the dorky loser. Here's one that has two really big ones. Two really big ones I think we can pick out.
I have been grinding nonstop for decades, and more, I realize the importance of enjoying life. I just wanted to create something better tasting, better ingredients, something I want to drink with my friends and family, and that is Delola. Making a good cocktail at home isn't as easy as it looks. It takes real skill and real time, not only to get all the ingredients, but to prep and measure and mix. There was really nothing on the market like that. And so it was important to me to work with one of the top mixologists in the world. And meeting Lynette has really been an amazing experience. I mean, she is immensely talented, and together we created this ready-to-enjoy product that has amazing flavor. Delola is more than just a delicious cocktail. We are female founded, and in the drinks business, there are very few female founders. This business is a very personal one to me, and the name Delola is as well. A long time ago, I was given the nickname Lola, and it stuck. And so I thought of the Lola from Lola as a name closely ties to me as a founder of this company. All of this came about when I fell in love with the effortlessly elegant lifestyle and hospitality of the Italian coast. I just love it. There's something about it that just speaks to me. And our Delola spritzes are inspired by this, but without all the artificial ingredients and all the sugars that the traditional ones contain. Delola is lower in alcohol than classic cocktails. It has about the same alcohol as a glass of wine. Delola has 3 amazing spritzes, and they are all incredibly delicious. We really wanted to make something that would set you free. You can have.
So there's a lot of things there I think that we can touch on. There's a lot of one in there. A lot of dialogue, yeah. Makes it more personable, Tylenol. Targeted advertisements, Setsuna Alpha, targeted towards women. This is a female-fronted business. Yeah, this was like a 2-minute ad, like you would see in a 3-minute stream ad, for example. But there was also taste, talking about how delicious it is. There was also health. This is much healthier than other alcohols. This doesn't have the artificial sugars and colors and stuff. So it was targeted, talked a lot about taste, downplayed any potential harms. This only has the same amount of alcohol as wine. Well, wine is still just 5 ounces for a regular standard drink. Oh, it has less artificial flavor. It's lower in sugar. But this hit quite a few of the strong manipulating tactics. This is the last video commercial we'll watch.
It's game day, baby. We got the team, we got the scheme. This year,
We're going all the way, baby.
We're going all the way, too. What are you doing? We don't say that. What's the matter with you?
All right, we're in the sunny seats today. You want some?
who wants cocktails?
Right here.
Game day is a we thing, and Smirnoff has a drink for every team.
Game day is a we thing. And they're not talking about Nintendo. That one might be a little trickier. But I would say, in addition to the social and community aspect, it also is, even though we don't consider it to be holiday, it's connected with essentially holidays, sporting events. This was around the Super Bowl. Alcohol is strongly associated with holidays like the 4th of July, like Super Bowl Sunday. Regularly recurring cultural events like weekly football games. When I go to baseball games, the major league team that's nearest to me is named the Brewers. The stadium they play in is called Miller Park. I mean, it's not called that anymore. They gave it to another sponsor, but everyone still calls it Miller Park. Strong associations with all different kinds of cultural events that make it more normal. But commercials aren't the only way they advertise. There's, billboards, magazine ads. Take a look at some of these four on the screen, and we'll see if we can pick out some of those tactics. We've got this one here. This is Mike's Hard Seltzer. It's alcoholic sparkling water. Yeah, that's a thing now. Don't overthink it. What might that be using as a means of manipulation? An appeal to anti-intellectualism, utopia tree. You're not far off. And raw with don't be a dork, just drink the thing, it's new. Both very true, actually. Don't overthink it. It's not a big deal. Just do it. And also the FOMO, fear of missing out. This is a new thing. This is a thing. It's happening now. Why aren't you already doing it? Don't think, just do it. Everyone's doing it. Fresher taste, Tyrone points out. Yeah, it's alcoholic sparkling water. And that is a thing that everyone's doing now. Every company has one. The White Claws came out, and there were all different kinds of them after that. Oh, and this is a Mike's Hard Lemonade one. I like their products. I'll try this one. Fear of missing out. Don't miss out on the new thing. Every wine mom Karen and Ugg boot wearing white college girl is doing. Drinking a White Claw. The bottom one right here is very obvious. World's best tasting vodka. It's taste, right? They're telling you, this tastes good. It's vodka. It's vodka. It's not supposed to have a taste. It's supposed to taste like nothing. This one is a magazine ad with a picture of a black couple saying endless opportunities and superior drinkability. They're targeting one specific population. They're trying to associate their product with a particular population, which is a very common tactic to target minorities with alcohol ads. Another example of which will be on the next screen. Yeah, and that alpha, that's another good point. Abstracting it behind terms you wouldn't normally associate with beer, even though it's basically what it is. Sparkling water. Yeah, beyond basic. This one here. Champion men deserve champion beer. What's that word that I used in the Bud Light ad? With the guy carrying the tray? There's a particular word that I think this applies. See if you can remember it. What word most fits? What's it trying to appeal to? Champion men deserve champion beer. Emasculation? Is that an alpha? Yes. The two ends of that spectrum. Emasculation and virility. On the one end, champion men, virile, strong men. They drink this. If you drink something else, you're not a champion. You must be less than. Some more print ads, though, for alcohol. I think we can all pick out what they're doing here on the one on the left. Pretty obvious that they're engaged in targeting for their ads. Getting themselves associated with holidays and particular groups of people. Then there's this one that was actually in Men's Health. This one was in Men's Health. You would think a health magazine, I mean, Men's Health isn't really a health magazine, but it ran what was essentially an extended ad for a couple different types of those hard seltzers. Masquerading as a comparison. Oh, we're going to put these different seltzers up head to head and see which ones are the best. Really, it was just an advertisement for them all and associating them with health. Well, these aren't as bad as regular beer. It's fine. Then there are all of these celebrity alcohols, like the Jennifer Lopez one we talked about. Rock the Dwayne Johnson's tequila. And we got this one. This guy drinking Belvedere vodka, rizzing up these ladies. He's smooth because he's drinking Belvedere vodka. Oh, but there's also the sponsorships and associations, right? Ads aren't just magazines and commercials. An entire car can be an ad. We've got the Budweiser car and the Miller Lite car right here. Ironic, considering that drinking is the last thing you should associate with alcohol. We got Heineken, the official sponsor of Coachella. Heineken also sponsoring the World Cup. Because you'll definitely play soccer well if you drink Heineken. Corona, the official sponsor of the Olympics. Because that's what Olympic athletes do. Bud Light here sponsoring a esports team. Drive fast, turn left. So we saw examples of basically all these. Positive emotion, celebrity endorsement, companies getting themselves associated with all different kinds of things, appealing to our emotions, our sense of virility or attractiveness, fear of missing out, being a part of the new trends, targeting our particular groups, downplaying the risks, getting our products placed everywhere, focusing on the taste and even the fact that these are healthier. That's just a few short examples we gave, and we could see all of them. So, speaking of driving, speaking of NASCAR and alcohol, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this because it should be pretty obvious that you should not be driving under the influence of alcohol. But there's another skill you should develop besides just, not doing this yourself. you should be able to stop someone else. So I want you to do that right now. I want you to pretend that I'm your buddy, and I'm about to head out from wherever we are drinking, and I'm about to drive, and I want you to tell me what you would say. Tell me what you would do. I'm your friend. I'm about to walk out the door. You got to think fast. Maybe you've been drinking too, but you're clear enough, or maybe you've just had a moment of clarity as you realize, oh, wait. This could be the last time I ever see my friend. What would you say? What would you do? Cuff you to the table there. I mean, that'll do the job, True Power. Rao, you would focus on the potential outcome, the consequences. An implied threat that you would knock them out. Would you be able to do it, do you think? I mean, not knock the person out. I mean, class generally, would you confront someone? Someone you know, maybe they're not even a close friend, maybe just someone that you know of, an acquaintance. Do you think you would be able to do it? And if not, what do you think is holding you back? Perhaps, what do you think you should do to get yourself ready to deal with that situation? Maybe have a statement in the back of your mind, something in your back pocket. It's like when we practiced mental health first aid and we talked about how to talk to someone who was experiencing a mental health crisis, how important it is to be at least somewhat practiced, to have thought about it at least, what you would say, what you would do. So that it's not the first time that you would ever say it out loud. So I would say it's important to at least have some practice. At least think about it once or twice. What should I say? What should I do? So that it's not the first time you're doing it. It can be extraordinarily difficult though, especially depending on your location. Depending on where you live, the use of alcohol may be deeply embedded in the culture, the history, socializing. I live in this area. There's something very special about the maps that you're looking at. This area seems to be very unique compared to other areas. This map, for example, shows the location of the 50 drunkest counties in the United States. Forty of them are in this one state. 40 out of 50 are all in one state on this top right map. All these other counties, they don't make the cut. This one state, Wisconsin, has 80% of the drunkest counties. Counties that consume more alcohol than any others. Nightshade, you say your area is also very common for drunk drivers. Huge problem. Yes. In the bottom right map, speaking of drunk driving, the lighter colored states, These are the states that have the least restrictive and have the lowest consequences for drunk driving. In this area, you suffer the lowest penalties for drunk driving. There are people who will have 6, 7, 8 offenses of operating under the influence and still have not had their license revoked. In the left bottom map, these are the alcohol taxes. All these dark green states have the lowest alcohol taxes, meaning that it's the cheapest place to get alcohol. And in this top left map is the rate or ratio of bars and taverns to grocery stores. In virtually every county in Wisconsin, there are more bars, taverns than there are grocery stores. No other state comes close. I can pick up a rock and walk out of my house right now. And if my shoulder wasn't the way it is, I could probably hit 3 bars. But I would have to go a couple miles down the road to get to the grocery store. So your location can make it much more difficult, or it might make it easier to deal with alcohol. Because it can be hard to avoid, because it can be very integrated into the culture, into our society. You know, you look at this map and you see, oh my gosh, Wisconsin. There's a reason that the University of Wisconsin-Madison is sometimes rated the #1 party school in America, despite the fact that it's not, down in Miami, it's not in California. It's the #1 drinking school in the country. It's where I went. And I barely drink. Far fewer social events, social activities that don't involve alcohol. People go to college, if they don't drink, maybe there just isn't as much to do. Maybe you're seen as the weird one. It can be hard. Of course, there are also situations in which people just shouldn't drink at all. Regardless. There are contraindications. There are medications and medical conditions that just mean a person should not drink. I'm not going to go into all of these in depth. I'll touch on a couple. But a whole range of things mean, hey, you shouldn't drink at all, moderate or not. Opioids, most mental health medications, any kind of sleep medicine, anything that is a blood medication, your cholesterol or blood thinners. That medicines for diabetes, ADHD. Antibiotics can also be dangerous to mix with alcohol. But there was one there, ADHD, that I want to touch on more specifically. Because people who have ADHD have a higher risk of developing an alcohol use disorder than people who don't have ADHD. They tend to begin drinking earlier in their lives, and they tend to drink more heavily when they do. And yes, absolutely, Nightshade, liver problems are another reason that you should not be drinking. If you have liver problems, kidney issues are also a big concern. Young people with ADHD tend to develop a substance use disorder earlier than others. And alcohol is particularly a problem spot. Compared to controls, 10% more of the population with ADHD may develop a substance use disorder than someone who does not have ADHD. for some of those individuals with ADHD, they began drinking earlier. They began drinking when they were a minor. What reasons do you think that might be? Why is it that people who have ADHD might be more prone to start drinking and start drinking earlier than people without it? Rao notes a notoriously worse impulse control. Very true. Yeah. Sometimes to slow down the thoughts is another good point. Novelty seeking, seeking new experiences. And then once they begin using alcohol, it becomes harder to stop. It's a particular challenge for people with ADHD when it comes to alcohol. The other problem is with, well, what's the treatment that most people use when they have ADHD? What type of medication do people use when they are diagnosed with ADHD? That's right, Rao. Stimulants. Stimulants and alcohol are very dangerous to mix together. Mixing a stimulant and a depressant together, very, very dangerous. Which does give us a lead into one other related topic to ADHD. Yeah, they don't just cancel out. It's dangerous because upper and a downer should not be taken together. They tend to do it because they are people who struggle more with impulse control, maybe seeking relief from the anxiety that can come from ADHD. But the other stimulant to be concerned with is caffeine. A lot of people enjoy caffeine with alcohol, whether it's Jack and Coke or a Jaeger bomb. Caffeine is very difficult. Caffeine can be very dangerous to mix with alcohol for its own reasons. It can mask the feeling of intoxication because it makes you feel more awake and alert, even though you are very much not alert. Caffeine is a diuretic in itself, so it makes you even more dehydrated faster. Because of that, it can make your headaches come on faster and worse as far as the hangover is concerned. And it's also harder on the heart. So we've had a whole lesson on caffeine. It has its own galaxy of issues. But probably not the best thing to combine it with something that also has potential issues. But ADHD is just one of the two things in the ADHD combination. The other is autism. And I'll mention a little more briefly because people with autism actually have a lower rate of alcohol substance use disorder than people without autism. It's less likely that someone with autism would develop an alcohol use disorder. However, people who do use alcohol may be more likely to misuse alcohol. So, people who you know, yourself, people with autism, while it's less likely that they might develop an alcohol use disorder, it should be something to watch for if you struggle with that. Because it might become something that becomes dependent on. Some people may use it because it dulls the sensory sensitivity that many people with autism may struggle with. It may also help someone to manage their social anxiety, another issue which someone with autism might struggle with. So it may be easier to form a habit, especially for people who need things to be very consistent. They do the same things more often. If someone does develop a dependence on a substance and they are already prone to be very consistent in the things they do, it might be very difficult to break that habit. All this leads me to this very important screen. I have something to tell you. I have something very important to tell you after discussing the risks and consequences of alcohol use, how culturally ingrained it is, all of the ways in which the dealers of this drug make sure that people keep using it. And that's something that I have to tell you, is that there is no safe level of alcohol consumption. We can call it moderate use. We can call it occasional alcohol use. But there is no safe level of alcohol use. One drink may not be any problem for someone at all. That does not mean that it is safe. There isn't a safe level of alcohol use. That means that any amount of alcohol is a risk. This is not a "you should not ever drink" spiel from me. I don't do that, and I've never done that even with the other drugs that we've talked about, covered. I don't say this to berate anyone. I say this to give you the honest, frank, objective statement. All of the research leads us to the decision that there is no safe level. You need to be judicious, you need to be thoughtful, and decide if that risk is worth it to you. Because it is a risk. No matter how little you would drink, it's not a safe consumption. Again, you can have your drink. You can have your one alcoholic beverage that you normally do, or when you go out with friends and have a few drinks. Not saying you can't or that you even shouldn't. But I'm saying that there isn't a safe level. I will just read from the global study on alcohol use and burden for all 195 countries and territories studied. And that statement is this: alcohol use is a leading risk factor for disease burden worldwide, accounting for nearly 10% of global deaths among populations aged 15 to 49 years old, and poses dire ramifications for future population health in the absence of policy action today. The widely held view of the health benefits of alcohol needs revising, particularly as improved methods and analyses continue to show how much alcohol use contributes to global death and disability. Our results show that the safest level of drinking is none. That is the safest level of drinking. 0. You can go ahead and drink if you'd like. That's fine. Just be judicious, be thoughtful, be careful, and understand that even one drink is a risk. If you're going to take a risk, take the smallest risks that you can. What did you miss, Griffith? Well, you got into the last couple of topics we want to talk on in our alcohol lesson. If you do drink, if you do decide to use alcohol, you may have to deal with the hangover. Not the hilarious series of movies, but the condition, a hangover. There's a couple things that you can do to help yourself prevent a hangover or recover. But I want to hear first your ideas. What do you think are the best methods to prevent hangover or to recover from one? What are your home remedies? What are your folk tales that you tell your friends to use? Hydrate, Tara says. Absolutely. The number one. Stay away from drunk drivers. Call the police. Make sure it's safe for the rest of the population on the roads. Yes, yes. Some good tips and tricks. Slam a Pedialyte. There you go. Get those electrolytes back in you. Some of those great prevention tips you talked about. Drink in moderation, of course. Plan to drink in moderation. Make sure you hydrate. Make sure that you're not drinking on an empty stomach. Eat something before and make sure that it has a good mix of carbs and healthy fats. That will help to slow the absorption of alcohol. And one, I guess, folk prevention method that does actually have some scientific backing is to avoid darker drinks. They have more congeners. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but they do make it more likely that you'll experience headache later on. Lighter fare. And for recovery, obviously hydrate again and eat light digestible foods. The brat diet, we've actually talked about this before. Illness recovery. Utilizing the brat diet, which is bananas, rice, applesauce, and toast. Those are some of the best foods you can use during a hangover. They don't have to be these exact foods, but things like these. Bananas, very easy to eat. Applesauce, give yourself some healthy sugars, good carbs. You may be depleted of B vitamins and vitamin C, so probably not a bad idea to get some of those. So prevent as much as you can. Drink less. Drink a lot of water before and during. Make sure to have a drink of water before you drink and have a glass of water in between each drink. Don't follow up one drink with another drink. If you drink that beer, make your next drink a glass of water. I feel like the hangover just doubles the amount of investment that it requires to use alcohol, right? Like, you not only have to spend the time to do the drinking and the time you spent to get the alcohol and however much time it took you to work to earn the money to drink, but then you also took the amount of time the next day that it took you to recover. That alcohol feels like it's a really quick, easy way to enjoy yourself, right? There is no upfront investment. You just pour it in and you feel good. But it's like buying something on credit. You pay for it later. So you might think, well, it's just for tonight that I'll be drunk and not be able to do anything. No, it's also the next day. The next day you will also be not able to do things, especially, yes, as you get older and it becomes increasingly painful. But I want to leave off, before we get to our games, I want to leave off with this very important point that's alcohol, because it is a drug, is a substance that can be abused, and it can lead to alcohol use disorder. It's a very serious addiction that 1 in 20 people will either have or have had at some point in their lives. Might be something that has affected you or someone you know. And it can very easily be something that people deny. They don't realize. They think that it's not affecting their lives, but the common traits for most addictions, when read off by the person, tend to stick up. That is, have you used more than you intended? Have you wanted to stop or cut back but have not been able to? You end up spending a lot of time using the substance and then a lot of time recovering. Alcohol is one that is particularly tough with, does that substance get you into dangerous situations? You have to use it more and more. It can be a very difficult addiction to get rid of, but the statistics can be very promising. people who do make the commitment to quit, after 1 year, 1 in 5 are already considered low risk. People who continue in their search for sobriety, by 2 years, 60% have reached sobriety. Within 5 years, 90% have reached sobriety. It can be a very difficult addiction to quit, but it is very, very possible. And if you are struggling, help is available. Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. It's a national helpline, 24/7, confidential, free, route you to treatment services. And it is available not just for you, but it is also for family, loved ones. If you're looking to help someone else, well, you can find resources there. Another good resource you can go to is smartrecovery.org. They offer mutual support groups. You can also find good tools to help you quit. You can find meetings. You can talk to other people who may be struggling with that same issue. And again, not just for yourself, but if there's someone that you care about in your life that is struggling with alcohol use. Because there are a lot of forces at work trying to get people to continue to drink. We talked about the many, many tactics that are used to get people to buy and consume alcohol. We talked about how it is culturally ingrained in many places, and depending on where you live, might be completely integrated with society. It might be difficult to find social activities that don't involve alcohol. It can be very, very challenging. But you don't need alcohol. And you don't need it to enjoy yourself. And if you do continue to use alcohol, if you choose to continue using it, remember that while you can lower your drinking, while you can reduce it, and that's great, there isn't any safe level. This is not to tell you that you have to quit cold turkey, but just to be smart, be judicious, be good to yourself. Understand that it is a risk. Try to minimize that risk. Just as we talked about with our other lessons on cannabis and caffeine and nicotine, we always have to make choices, even in the food we eat. The foods we eat might be a risk, but we try to be smart about it, because there are enormous benefits to reducing or eliminating alcohol from our lives. Based on some of these symbols here, these hieroglyphs, I will lastly ask you, what do you think some of these are? What would the benefits be? If someone was drinking alcohol, maybe not even to the point where it was a real problem for them, but maybe they just drank a little more than maybe they should, what would the benefits be if they were to quit? Time, health, sleep, money, Utopia Tree says. Sounds like the name of Red Hot Chili Peppers album. Oh wait, that's Blood Sugar Sex Magic. Most of you don't know what that is, you're too young. But you hit on some of the very good ones there, yes. Life expectancy, Rouse says. Immune system, better sleep, better mood in particular. I liked this one because this symbol can help represent mood stability, not rapidly cycling between. Obviously, alcohol costs money, and everything costs money right now, so save as much as you can. Keep yourself healthier, better immune system, better sleep. You said ladies, but what I mean by this is hair. And this here is skin. Your skin and hair. Yes, healthier skin, healthier hair. Alcohol is very hard on your hair and skin and your nails. Obviously, your gastrointestinal system and your social connections. All kinds of great benefits. Whiskey makes you bald. It is hard on your hair. It can contribute to less luxurious locks. It also ages your skin faster, yes. Anyway, yeah, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, I got sidetracked. So yeah, all kinds of great benefits to reducing or eliminating alcohol from your lifestyle. There's a lot of easy skills you can implement. What do you think some of these ones are? Some of these strategies you might implement. And no, this one does not mean that you have a tiny whatever. But some of the skills that you can use are managing your budget. Actually, think about how much money are you really spending each month on alcohol? Write that out. Calculate it and look at it. Hey, wow, that's plenty of money. I could be buying other good stuff. There's other stuff I could be using with that money. Even just doing the budget might give you an idea of how much you're wasting. Or it might allow you to work your desired amount of alcohol into your budget. You might just decide to, you know what, shrink the amount a little bit. There are plenty of other activities you can use in place of alcohol, other hobbies. You can get social support, talk to someone about it, find an accountability buddy. You might just decide to take a pause. You don't need to quit cold turkey, not necessarily. Or just take a little break. Make sure that you are following a plan if you do want to stop. Make sure that it is time bound. Increase your amount of water. Drink before, during, and after. Anytime you're using alcohol, make sure that you're drinking water before, during, and after any alcohol consumption. You might also decide to cut out all but one type of alcohol. You know what? Mixing different alcohols, probably not a good idea anyway. Maybe I will only have beer. Improve your diet can also help. Opt for other alternatives. There's a reason that soft drinks were invented. Well, two of them. One was to mix with alcohol. The other is to be used as a replacement. And you can just slow down. Drink slower. Another big factor that you can use. Just drink slower. Nurse that beer. You know, the last thing I usually do on this lesson is I let the class write an honest ad about alcohol. We watched a bunch of ads today. Well, we watched a bunch of alcohol ads. It's all the tactics and the techniques they use to manipulate people. And some of you asked, why isn't it more regulated then? That's a good point. Well, if it was regulated like a normal drug, what would an ad sound like? Because you know how those ads, they always have to have that voiceover at the end, that fast voiceover at the end, give you the little, this drug may cause blah, 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 blah. Do not take if you do, blah, 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 right? What would an alcohol ad sound like if it had to have that? What things would it have to include, class? Like, alcohol may cause what? You were here for the lesson. What does alcohol cause? Brain damage, yeah. That is something you might have to mention. Alcohol may increase cognitive decline. Alcohol may cause early onset dementia. Alcohol may cause liver damage. Yeah. Maybe that should have to be on your warning label, like on the cigarette labels. Alcohol may cause damage to your cuticles and your hair follicles. May cause early skin aging. Do not use this drug if you blank, right? All the drug ads have to say that. If you are pregnant, nursing, or may become pregnant, right? That would have to be in there for the alcohol drug warning. Do not use this drug if you take any stimulant medication. Do not use this drug if you are taking antibiotics. Do not mix this drug with caffeine. Do not operate machinery while under the use of this drug. Honestly, if they had to do a drug warning ad at the end of any commercial for alcohol, it would take up the entire time of the ad. Rouse got one. Warning, substance may cause excessive bad dancing, hair loss, loss of cash, temporarily increased social standing, long-term decreased social standing, accidental pregnancy, accidental matrimony, accidental death, surprise deliveries from Amazon Prime. May increase your risk of liver cancer and heart disease. May cause colon cancer and breast cancer. Do not take this drug if you are taking insulin for diabetes, if you take high blood pressure or cholesterol medication. Do not take this drug if you suffer from mental health disorders, if you have recently been diagnosed with any illness. It would take probably that fast-talking voice a full 30 seconds, and then there would be no time left for the ad. Absolutely, Apple. Do not consume alcohol mixed with antidepressants, tranquilizers, SSRIs, MAOIs. Consult your doctor. And I appreciate the jokes. I do like the jokes, Raul. The risk of physical injury, right? We were at that slide previously. 10% of all deaths that are not attributed to senescence, that is aging, are related to alcohol. Doing something stupid and getting hurt, 1 in 5 times it involves alcohol. One of the leading causes of non-fatal injury, on top of the fatal injuries. Kind of surprised it's only 1 in 5, Rao. Well, I mean, I'm pretty clumsy even without alcohol, so I guess I can see it. But yeah, that includes everyone. So that includes, falls at home from the elderly. And yes, there are so many, many other drugs out there. A lot of people only see the liver damage. They think, well, the consequence of long-term alcohol use is just your liver shuts down. Which, that's bad enough as it is, but a whole lot of long-term consequences. But I will turn it over for you for any questions, comments, feedback, suggestions you have about what our lesson was. Yeah, questions about this or anything else that we do in our little classroom, comments, what you think we should study next, topics you think we should cover next time, suggestions. Without any further questions, congratulations, you completed Mr. Aegis alcohol lesson. I can put your name on this little certificate and digitally send it to you in the Discord if you would like, which you can join, of course, right there. Follow me on the socials. You can also check out our previous list of VODs. All of our previous lessons are there, and this one will be added to it once I get it edited up and polished up. But I appreciate your attendance and your patience and your support of our strange little learning community here, our educational, informational mix of edutainment that we do. The only VTuber health teacher in the world. That's us. Thank you so much for watching this lesson. I hope you enjoyed your time and that you learned something you can take with you. If you did, please like the video and follow the channel here and on Twitch so you can catch our games and lessons live. You can also watch our previous lessons at the links on the screen. And thank you for supporting independent and educational live streaming and VTubing. That's all I have for you today. Class dismissed.